Alrighty, good morning, Howard, and whoever else. Let's go in and see if I can remember how to do some of this. So it looked like on the last deal that you were working on is, and I don't always draw this way, but see how you can click in the center of that and draw. What I think I've got two of them going on here now, so let's delete one. I was just trying something that I don't normally do. Like I told you, I usually just make them whatever size. I've got a 12-inch workpiece in here to give us some room, so let's start this with a let's go with a 10-inch circle on the outside, and then let's give ourselves a, some people do an offset of a circle, but sometimes it's not very accurate. Let's try that. If you want to do that, right here it says offset, and you can go inwards a distance of, let's say, let's go 3/8 inward and see what that looks like. Sometimes shapes don't hold very well doing that, and I always want to look at the nodes to make sure it did okay, and it looks fine. So one thing I was watching Ryan on Learn Your CNC, he's the best source for learning Vectric software. A lot of videos on his YouTube or even on his website are on an older version, so you may find yourself kind of frustrated that some of these tools that he clicks on are not, they don't look the same as the newest version of 12.5 that we're using. But one thing I know that when well, we'll get to that. So let's text on a curve. I think what you was doing the other day was let's just type the word Tobin. Anything you write in here is going to be grouped as one thing, and so this is a Western font, so we'll leave that alone for now. It's 1 inch tall right there, so let's just close that for now. And we need to put that on a curve, so what we really need to do is put another circle in the middle here. So let's give ourselves a circle of, let's try 6 inches for now. And let's try that. Yeah, I didn't get that right. So again, let's just go in here and center that up. There we go. Everything's centered off the workpiece, or centered in the workpiece. So that may be a little bit small. So if you want, I was really thinking there's a way in this newer version that you could change that out here, but I think it's in 3D mode, which I don't normally work in 3D mode, but I think if you do, see, you can see that's 6 inches. I think you can click that and put, let's say we're going to go 6.5. I guess you have to type, golly, type it on both. .5. To me, that's not very handy for the way I operate. Yeah, I don't like it. So let's go back in here and look at that. Set the size right here. I'm not used to using it that way. So anyway, there we go. I'm just giving a place to wrap this text onto a curve. A little bit, and this is going to be where I assume you wanted to pocket all this out and leave this margin here. So alright, so now we want to just click on the text first, then click on your curve you want to attach that to, and I think I know what's going to happen, but let's try it. See right here where it says text on a curve, it's going to jump it way down here, and we don't really want that. So let's push Control Z and get rid of, you have to close your tool first, then push Control Z and it backs us back up. Alright, if you push the N right here or go right over here to node editing mode, see right there, click that, and it's saying you can't do that as long as that's a text. We were just wanting to do this. Alright, see that your little green dot? From what I'm gathering, when you text to a curve, it's going to jump your text to an opposite corner or side of the start point, which is, it'll do it down here like we saw. So if you click down here, right click that and push make start point, and then push N to turn node editing off. Now let's go back and try it again. Hit the text, then the curve you want to apply that to. Push our text on curve right here, and it's in there but it's upside down. But see here, we have all these different things we can play with here. So number one is text spacing. To me they're too close together, so probably need to bring them apart anyway. So I don't know what percentage we're at here. I wish it said what I'm at, but anyway, I've moved that bar to there. You can go above the curve, on the curve, below the curve. You know, we can try this stuff. That's not getting us exactly what we want here. So do this text on the other side, and there we go. That's what we're hunting. We want that to be up here. Okay. And maybe they're a little bit too close. Let's bring them back together a little. See what it's going to look like if we bring it back. And let's leave that alone for now. It looks like it's about, what, a third or a little more on that. I wish it would actually give you a number that it changed that to, in case we want to match the other one. And also you can do an offset distance of how far you want to be off that line, but I think that's about right the way it is. And you can do, you know, if you wanted to make these letters stand straight up and down like that, you could, but I don't think that's what we want here. So let's close that tool, and I think to do this, now we want one on this side, but remember we've moved our start point there, so I don't know if it's going to still mess with that, but let's push node editing, let's put our start point back up here and see if, I don't think it messed with it now, so that left that alone. So now let's go into our text file again, our tool here, and type, I think you had the word ranch in here. Okay, and find out how to just get this down here. See, that's what I forgot to do, is center that earlier, but it's trying to snap that to the center. I'm not sure I trust that, but anyway, let's try that. And while we got that in there, let's just go into this tool and make sure it's centered. And I didn't mean to center it up there, but it doesn't matter. As long as that's centered, we're good, right? Alright, sorry, my throat's kind of draining here. So we're going to select that, select this, and then let's put this on a curve. Now we were on the outside of that curve, so we want to text on the other side. That kind of flipped it over, and I don't like, I'm not sure why. If we can do anything about that, let's go below the curve. Text on the other side. Oh yeah, that's right, isn't it? Okay, that's what I mean. You got to click around here, and then again we need to space that out just a little bit, maybe a little much there. And also, you got to remember, you got to get your tool in here if you want these letters to be standing proud here. And so while you're in the text tool here too, you can, to me it looks like the H is a little closer than the rest of them. It may just look that way. But while you're in this text tool right here, if you see that little thing popping up, if you get right between them and hold the shift key, you can do one individual letter at a time until you kind of think it looks right, and then close that tool back out. Now the only reason we drew that line is just for a construction line to use, so if you want you can either just delete it to get it out of the way, or a lot of times I'll just say move to a layer. Let's just put a new layer, and we could just call that layer construction. You don't have to name that. You normally would. Construction line. You can even change that to a different color so you know it's, and then we don't need it visible right now, so that just gets that out of your way, and anytime you want it back, you just go up here to layer and highlight it back in there or turn it off, whichever you want. So, but as of right now, I think that's kind of how you were drawing this, and you had a Texas in here. I saved that Texas file somewhere last night. It was really late. There it is. I saved a SVG file of that, and so we need to center that in this job like that. I think it's a little bit big because it's close to these letters, so I actually think we need to, and you can go by percentage here if you want it. So let's say make that 90% of what it is and take a look. Maybe that's okay. And then you had some stars in there, so what I think we ought to do here is see how that's snapping to the center point or whatever. We can double check. I would go ahead and put them right on this, snap them on here so you can get them in the same distance, and make sure that's the size you want and everything. We could probably even, well, we'll wait on that. So go ahead and push shift and highlight both of them. And I think what we can do here, I don't know what this will do for sure. Since they're both highlighted and this says scale selection, it's looking at both of those as one distance. You know, that's 9 point something. Leave this linked and see what it does if we just change this to say 7.5. Let's see what that looks like. Just hoping it don't distort the stars. And I think it might have made them a little smaller. So in that case, I don't know why I unclicked that. Let's just go in here and push. Select both of them again. And then we'll go ahead and push this scale items individually so we can make them each one bigger. Let's make them about 1.2 inches. And that's just holding the, the ratio of, we don't want to unlink a star, it'll pull the shape out. So let's do that. I think that's maybe a hair too big, so we can go back and say push 1.0 inches there, and maybe that's okay. Now, I don't know if that's too, to me that's needs to be a little more centered in here, but first off, let's make sure we're centered in this Y direction. It moved a little bit, and then make sure that's centered, and that's okay. But if you want to bump these, then don't zoom nothing while you do this, but let's just say move that, let's say 2 clicks, and I didn't zoom nothing yet, so do this one. I'm pushing the arrow cursor keys here, 2 clicks. To me that looks a little bit better. And I think that's ready. Now, you know, I've told you before that you're not going to get a big tool in here, and in fact it's going to take 2 tools, a clearance tool. You may not even get it in there. You can go in here and draw a diameter of a 1/16 of an inch. It's going to be about as small an end mill as you would ever want to use, probably. On this, and so draw that in here and just see if that will fit in between there. I know an 1/8 of an inch will not, but you can see that 1/16 will go in there. But remember, I told you before, you're not going to be able to get in these corners, so either go in there and clear them out or just let it run. It might run it that way anyway. Let's just try without going in and doing all that work and see what it looks like. So to do this, you're going to have 3 tool paths by the time it's done, but just go ahead and select all of this, but go ahead and unselect the outside one. Okay, and you want to do a pocket on all of that, just like we've done before. So let's go over here to pocket toolpath. Now I've already put these in here because I did this last night, but all I've got is I've put a 1/8 inch end mill in here and a 1/16 end mill. They're both already in here, and think I've got the passes set to a pretty light passes, so you won't have issues. It'll take a long time, but you're not going to break anything, and you can probably speed that up as it's running if you think it can handle it. 150 thousandths depth cut there. Ramping the plunge move, and let's name this pocket ranch and calculate. Okay, and see it made two tool paths here, and one of them is, remember how you can hover over this and see what tool's which. The first one there is going to be the 1/8, and the second one's going to be the 16th end mill. Now I would go ahead, because when this saves this, it's going to save it weird. So let's rename this so you can see a little less stuff going on here, because the names of these end mills don't matter that much. But so let's just go, let's leave that 1/8 in there, and let's see, we don't need it to say Badger roughing. That's just a particular tool I had in that database that I was using. And that clear 1 just means that's the first part of that pocket tool path, so let's just get rid of that, and it just says clear 1. And now let's go down here and say, rename the second part of this to pocket ranch. I'll just put second, and I'm going to put in parentheses 1/16 inch, and I'm just going to leave that second, so that means you run that one first. In fact, let me go in and rename that again, and right here let's just put first, right like that, and then second. So now let's see, now we got another toolpath we need to do, so we need to select this, just this outside vector right there. Okay, and let's create, I don't like them selected when we do this, so see there, we're going to just select the outside, and we're going to go to Profile Toolpath. You're going all the way through the material, so you had that 1/2 inch thick material. Make sure you measure that and know that that really is how thick that material is. Measure it with calipers or some way. Even take your tool and just measure the top with a piece of paper, and then measure the bottom of your spool board or whatever with a piece of paper, and take that distance. If you don't have a caliper or something, at least know that it's not like 505 or whatever it might be, but you got it in there at 1/2 inch. Outside, we've got the 1/8 end mill in there again. You could use a 1/4 inch end mill for this just fine. It's up to you. I've got this just in here using that same tool, and it's taking pretty light passes of a 1/16 of an inch at 40 inches a minute, so we'll leave it alone. You can change some of that if you want. I've already sent you a file that I worked on, not this exact one. I just made this from scratch here, but I'm doing a little better job on this of remembering how to go about this. So outside the line, we're going to cut this out. We're not going to do any allowance on this. You could go in and run this a V-carve to do a little bit of deburr work, but you can sand that out or whatever you want to do on your first piece and decide later how you want to do that. Okay, we'll go ahead and add a ramp, a smooth ramp. Just leave about a 1/2 inch in there. The general rule is to go about at least twice the diameter of the tool, so you could get by with a 1/4, but or we could just put 3/8 right there on that for the distance. That's just how far it's going to ramp down until it reaches the full pass depth, which ain't much on that anyway. So I think we're going down to 1/16. So now I'll change the name of this to ranch outside cut, and let's go ahead and put that 1/8 inch in there in parentheses like we did on the other one. And this will be outside. Let's put profile cut, and remember this was the third, so this would be what you do at the end. And now let's calculate, and now let's run all of this and just see if it looks like what we expect it to do. So for some reason it didn't do these first two. Let's first off, just so you know how this is going to work, let's just get this out of our way. You can turn this material off and stuff right here, and your Z, it's just showing you had your Z set in the lower left right there. So let's run that tool, and it's going to go, the 1/8 end mill is just going to go do everything it can reach. If it can't fit in a spot, it's going to save that work for the 1/16, and it is going to take quite a while to do that many passes. It could take a few hours. I don't know. You just have to run it and see if it's something you like. So the bigger the project you make, the more you can use a bigger tool and get things done a little faster. And if you get some of those roughing end mills like that, either cutting it close, CIC Workshop sells or IDC Woodcraft sells. CIC Workshop is right here in Texas. He's I don't remember the name of the town, somewhere kind of outside of College Station area. But anyway, you see that is just going in there and getting this done. It's just pocketing all that out, and you'll see it couldn't reach everything. It didn't get that yet just right, and we didn't go in there and fix any of those little corners, but you can see it's whittling them out funny shape. But now let's do this second. The 16th is going to go in and do the rest of the work that it couldn't reach, and see it made it a little bit nicer shape where that 16th tool came in and did the rest of that work. See, so that's it. That's kind of what I think that's what you were trying to do, and I didn't reshape or do anything. You can probably see that it's rounding off some of these inside corners, just the natural fit of a round tool in a square area. See, and the smaller the detail, the harder it is for it to get in there and do anything. But that should work okay. You may have a bunch of tool lines in here because it's such a small tool, and you may even want to run that again to, if you had time, and just run it faster and let it kind of re-clean up. At least the 16th tool, what comes in here, gets that last pass. It may need to run it one more time depending on how fuzzy the wood is cut and everything. So that's kind of how you do that, Howard. And if you need to holler at me today, go ahead, and I'll get into some of the other details. I know I may be leaving a few details out that you're kind of new to this and that you may not completely understand. So but that's kind of how that works. So anyway, I think I'll save this again. Oh, one thing I didn't show you, Howard, here is, or anyone that's interested here, if in 2D view, see, to select this Texas vector, and I've checked, it's pretty clean. This is one I think you traced. I didn't mess with it. It's got some funny lines, but Texas has some funny shapes, so it's probably okay. And it looks like it's all connected and everything's fine. So I highlight this Texas like that. Any kind of, something I never did that I usually would do is change this to curves, but it'll still work fine like that, I guess. So highlight the Texas, go up here where it says File, and there could be some other buttons here, but I just go to File, Export, SVG file. And that's a way also you could do that on this whole thing. In fact, say someone had a version of Vectric that's not the same as yours, like I have a Spire, and I think you can still open these CRV files that I saved, but in case you can't, what I would do here is just highlight everything in here. In fact, to do that, you really need to get rid of this text. See how those are dark colored? All you do is go highlight those and push convert to curves. See right here, the one that has the 2 letters? That turns them into vectors. See where you can move them individually and work with them and anything you want to do there. So now everything in here is vectors. You can also push this vector validator here if you ever have something you're not sure, and you push search selected and it'll show you if there's any errors in any of this, or push the N key and you can see the nodes in here. That make sure these are clean lines and there's nothing, you know, like something with millions of lines connected like a DXF file would have. I don't like that. Alright, anyway, we've selected all that. Let's go up to File, Export. Do not use DXF. That gives a terrible result. Use SVG is the most common, or this EPS is a good clean file, but not everybody can open an EPS file. Anybody with Vectric software can, but SVG is a real common one that works well. And then name that, I'm just going to name it Tobin SVG, and see that's saving as the file SVG. And I'll put that in where I had the other stuff, I think was for now in here, and save that file. Okay, so now, and while I'm in here, I'll go ahead and save this project. See where it says save as? This Aspire wants to save this as a CRV 3D file. I never save them that way because someone might not can open that. And I feel like if you have VCarve or VCarve Pro, if as long as it's a CRV, I think you can probably open it. I'm not 100% sure of that because I don't have. Just let me know if you get any of these files and you can't open them. But I'll save it that way, and don't leave it as file name new. Change that to, I'm going to say Tobin R2 because I've already have a version of this somewhere here. And I'll save this. And it's just reminding me that you're not going to get any 3D features that are in this software. I already know that. And so that's all. So it's saying he ain't made changes. I know that. It's just warning you of things that's like I'm not saving the new file. No, you don't want to save over your new file. That's just when you open a new file. So do you want to save changes? No. And so I close that. Now just display like this. I send you this file and you want to open it. So, you know, open up your software. In this case, I could open VCarve Pro 12 version. I keep my old versions in here. And so let's see if I can just open that in here. So if I go to open an existing file, and I go to where I saved that, which was in right here, and remember I saved that as Tobin. Let's go to name and see if it's in alphabetical order. And for some reason I'm not really seeing that. Let's just go, there it is. There's that SVG file that we saved, remember? So let's click that and go open. And so there it is, and that's just the vectors of this. And see, we could also see if this is the size that we meant. Well, crap. Let's go back in here. Open that again. When it opens the file, it's asking, you know, if this is what you want. And I've got that in as 0.25. It needed to be 0.5 on this job. Because that wasn't a job file. That was just the vectors here. And material surface, just the same way. And then say, OK. Now, if you notice, there's no toolpaths in here because that wasn't the CRV file. That was just an SVG file, okay? It's not the same. You're not getting any toolpaths when you do that, but you could share files with people It's kind of a workaround so you can save files from even a different software altogether. You can send that to somebody that uses Carbide Create or, anything else, even Lightburn or something like that. So if we want to see if the size is correct, some people say that SVG doesn't retain sizes. I've never seen that be the case, but remember we made that a 10-inch outside, I believe, so let's see if it's 10 inches. And it is, it's showing to be 10 inches. So I've never seen it not retain the size or anything. Everything is clean. Let's see what that looks like. Looks just like it did when we saved it. So I've had good results for about 9 years. I think I've been using this method on plasma cutting and everything else. So works good. Anyway, hope that helped you a lot, Howard, and I'm looking forward to doing a Zoom meeting with you to go over any of this and hear any questions you may have, and I can show you where to get some fonts and things like that you can fill up your computer with fonts that you like, and I don't want to get into that right now because this video is getting long, I'm sure. Alright then, I'll just close this because there's nothing I need to say about that, and have a good day and a good weekend, everybody.